In this class we want to talk about learning styles. Now, research suggests that individuals learn in different ways. Learning is maximized if individuals know how they learn best. So, what is the style of learning that best suits the individual? Now, that style of learning is the one that maximizes the learning time and the understanding of the material. And individuals vary according to what they want and how they study. So individuals may want to study from books, or attend classes, or watch videos, or they may want to do something with their hands and construct something. And we'll talk about these later in this class. But that's maybe one way of learning and what the individual wants. But they may also want to vary when they want to study. Some might want to study late at night. They like studying before they sleep. Some like to get up early morning and study, or study in the afternoon, or so there may be different times as to when they want to study. And they may want to study over several time periods. They might want to do some study in the morning, some in the afternoon, some in the evening. It depends. Individuals vary, and it's important to try and work out what is the best learning style for individuals. Being able to identify the best learning style allows the learner to improve the quality of his or her learning. And it's not just the quantity. Students may attend classes at college or at university or at institutions, may attend but may not learn. They may physically be in the room and hear the class or hear the lecture, but not understand what's going on, or not pay attention to what's going on, because it doesn't match their learning style. It's the quality of the learning that's important. It's the effectiveness of the learning. It's the efficiency with which it is delivered and imparted. So it's the quality of learning that we need to focus on. And individuals have a mix of learning styles. As I said earlier, it depends on the time of day, or depends on the style of learning, going to the library and getting a book, or going to a class, or watching a video, or doing something with your hands. But despite the different types of learning styles that individuals may come across, there may be one dominant style for each learner. So we have our own preferences, we have our own requirements. So I may learn from videos, and I may learn from going to lectures, but I may learn best by going to the library and reading a book, or going online and finding an article and reading the article. That may suit me best. So each individual has their own best way of learning. Now let's talk about types of learning styles. Well, there are three broad categories we may take into consideration. These are very broad categories, but the first one is the visual. We learn by looking. We learn by making observations. We learn by watching videos, by watching films. We learn with our eyes. We learn by observing the environment. We learn also by reading. And students who are visually impaired may compensate for this by having better senses, better ways of learning that suits them. But for the bulk of learners, there are some that the visual is important as a learning style. Reading, observing, and making sense of what has been seen. The second type is auditory, listening and making notes, perhaps going to a lecture and hearing what the lecturer has to say about a particular topic and making notes based on the lecture. Auditory is listening, and we learn from listening. And the final type is kinesthetic. Now, kinesthetic is to do with touching, feeling. Sometimes we learn more by making a model of the situation, making a physical model of the situation if we can, and looking at it and studying it. We learn by making things, making products, or making samples, or making objects with our hands, and learning from the experience of doing. Let's go over these very quickly. First of all, the visual learners. Well, as I said, it's learning by seeing. We process new information by using or through visual aids. So we may use the visual aids, or we may learn through the visual aids, through the use of the visual aids. So it's a process of acquiring information by visual aids. Information is easily absorbed by the use of handouts, charts, and visual information. People who like to learn in this way, they like to see pictures, they like to see complicated data in graphical format, as a chart, looking at it, or as a graph. Or if it's an organization, they like to see boxes showing the different departments with arrows connecting them. They can visualize the business. They're visualizing the picture, and they're seeing the organization in that way. Auditory learners, well, these learn through verbal communications and lectures and classes and seminars and tutorials, and just by talking to each other, learning from group situations, learning from each other. The information has to be heard to be effective for this type of learner. The information has to be passed as a sound from one to the other. Now, it could be processed through written works and lectures. So information can be processed in that way. And the written works could be discussed, so it's auditory. And the information that's produced in a group discussion or in a lecture or in a tutorial or whatever, that information could be written down, so it could be turned into written works. So there is a connection between written work and the auditory experience. Auditory learners may use recordings or read out loud for information to be transferred. Sound recording may be used to capture information, auditory information, sound information, and talking out loud so that the information is being passed out into the environment where others may receive it. That's a form of communications, auditory communications. Now, the final type was kinesthetic. And here learning is best achieved through hands-on activities. It's doing rather than seeing or hearing. It's doing something. Doing it is felt to be the best way of learning. And for some people, this is the best way of learning. Sometimes we can have short attention spans if activities are not engaging. Well, when that happens, if it's possible for students to make something, to do something with their hands, then they are more engaged. And for some learners, that is the best form of learning. So they prefer activities where there is movement, hands-on experiments. Now the benefits of learning styles, well, it's to absorb and interpret information more easily. The idea is to take in information, to process the information, to understand it. And what is the best form in which the information is delivered? Is it visual? Is it auditory? Or is it kinesthetic? Having determined the best form of learning style, if the student can engage in learning through that style, then this will reduce the studying time. And the learners will be more engaged. They will feel better about their learning experience because they're able to pick up the information in that format. And it's important, if possible, for students and individuals to choose their own study methods. It's not always the case. When we go to a lecture in a college or in a university, we have no say over how the lecture is going to be presented. The lecturer determines this. There may be slides, PowerPoint slides, or different sorts of slides during the lecture which are visual. The information is coming across in an auditory sense, and whereas we may like to actually do something with our hands. We may like to make models and to learn by doing something, by engaging in some activity, by learning by doing. So it's not always we can control the situation, but if we can, and if we know we prefer doing something with our hands, with learning by doing, then that is the form of learning we should engage in, because that is the most efficient for us. If we are good at listening, then auditory is the solution. But it's for us to determine what is the best method of learning and try and match our learning experiences to our learning strengths. That's all I'm going to do in this class. That's all we need to be concerned with here. So I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.